Hello, hello, hello. Angel here. Quick introduction is my name is Angel, and I am on the journey to allowing my natural soul expression to lead more than my ego and my mind. And I'm taking you along with me. That being said, it's, I think, more important now when times are challenging. And as a millennial, when hasn't there been a challenging time, right? It's been disaster after disaster, chaos nonstop. But I've always kept my coping mechanisms and the way that I find survival to myself. And now I want, I've been called to share. I've been called to YouTube. I've been called to share. I don't necessarily know what that looks like. I don't know what that sounds like. I don't know what that feels like. Although I'm starting to get a better idea each time I post. So the way this has been going is I have no script, no idea what I'm going to talk about. I'm just going to try to be as clear and as connected as possible. That being said, I did get a little bit in my head about how rampagey or rambly that I've felt in the last few uh, videos. So I do want to hit at least 3 points in every video. We're going to try something out. I want to hit the concepts of what am I speaking about, why does it matter, and what I want you all, us all, to walk away with. That being said, I'm just going to get real quiet and see what today's topic is going to be about. Service. Okay, so now more than ever, it's so easy to get trapped in our minds, trapped in our circumstances, trapped on social media, doom scrolling. I have a smile when I say those things because that was me yesterday. And oftentimes it's difficult to pinpoint how do we get out of our heads? How do we get out of our heads and how do we stay connected in the midst of the chaos? How do we rise above the noise, if you will? And one amazingly powerful way to do that is service. Step outside of ourselves and ask someone if they need assistance in some way, shape, or form. This was pretty massive for me in my journey over the last 2 years. I don't know. I guess I got the message similar to how I'm getting it right now, and I just started showing up. Again, if you happen to watch the video on community, community is still fairly new to me. And, you have to be willing to be a villager to have a village. And that comes twofold. One, you have to be willing to show up and support. And two, you have to be willing to receive. I'm still working on the receiving end, but today we're going to talk a little bit more about the service piece of it. So I think that this matters because in an individualistic culture such as America, we can often feel like we have to do it all on our own. And that's just not the case. Um, it's important to remember that one, we're not alone, and two, the human species didn't last this long with doing it all alone. Um, I imagine villages having, people for childcare, people for, the production of food, people. in the community, in the villages. And now this is stuff that we pay for, right? Um, I always found that very fascinating. I think Trevor Noah said something very similar, that it's all a scam and we've been sold this sense of villaging and community um, after it was kind of, taken away from us. So that's one point, is we weren't meant to do it alone. We didn't last this long by doing it alone. Ooh, okay. So this other piece is, often when we step outside of our own perception of our problems, we can see that when we're not alone in the suffering, sometimes who we help, their problems are bigger than ours, so we can give it some perspective. Not in a, oh, well, I'm glad my problems aren't this bad, but just setting some truth to the story that we tell ourselves. If you happen to watch the episode on triggers, one of the points that was coming up was that the triggers aren't what's triggering us or making or hurting us. Sorry. The trigger isn't what's hurting us, it's the story we're telling ourselves when we are triggered. So in our suffering, in our problems, there are these stories that come up that we're alone, no one will understand, I don't want to be seen like this, fear of perception, fear of rejection, fear, just all of it, right? But when we step outside into our community and we're a little vulnerable, I started to realize that my problems weren't just for me. I'm not the only person on the planet that's been, you know, a product of foster care, a divorcee. What else? I don't know. I do have a list of problems. I just can't seem to think of them right now because that's not the point. The point is when I stepped into my power of service and I started to be present for my community, things just started locking into place. It's really quite fascinating, the community that I've been able to build just over the past 5 years, but especially over the last two. The first 3 years, I feel like the community was established from a place of people pleasing and like performance. Because if you happen to catch the Fear is a Liar episode, there was a large portion of my life, I mean, hell, all the way up until 2 years ago, that I was making most of my decisions from fear and I didn't even realize it. And so, thinking that I had accomplished a certain level of success, I thought that, you know, creating my community back then was not necessarily a show off, but I thought I needed to be a certain someone in order to be of value in my community then. And having a community show up for you when you're at your most undefined, when you're in the deepest unknown, when you're rebuilding yourself from the absolute bottom up, is quite amazing. Not just for them to show up for me, but to find that inner strength and unconditional love to show up for them as well. That unconditional love, here's the point. Here's the point. Let's go. The point is That unconditional love that I was feeling to show up for the people who stood by me at my darkest was an extremely powerful, energetic force that helped me to pick myself up off the ground, put the pieces of myself together, and continue forward in building this next version of myself. Serving others is a beautiful gateway to finding your strength in completely and unconditionally loving and serving yourself. And when I say serving yourself, I don't mean from a selfish point of view. I mean from a selfless point of view, because when we are full, then we can serve from a more full point. You can't pour from an empty cup. And there's no perfect place to start, right? It's not like it's not a perfect formula. It's not black and white, and it's definitely going to look different for everybody. How you show up, what capacity you have to show up in, who is going to allow you to show up. As a former hyper independent woman myself, I was surrounded by hyper independent women as well. And so when it came down to first starting to show up for these people, oh, the resistance, girls. The resistance was real. And it's been such a journey to watch my girls' walls melt away and allow me to show up for them. And I got to tell you, the magic that comes from one hyper independent person's walls coming down and allowing another person who is still learning community, holy shit. It's unmatched. So I guess I'm here to be living proof in this particular episode that when we step into our service, oh, I'm also hearing that it's not linear. Like serving others and allowing yourself to receive go hand in hand, and one does not come before the other. You might need to take care of yourself a little bit before you go out and serve. You know, energetically speaking, that makes absolute sense. Sometimes I do have to take care of myself in order to go out and pour into other. Most of the time I do, right? But it's a balance too, because sometimes when I'm in dark places, not only do I get to practice how to receive, but I get to practice stepping outside of me to serve. So, I mean, there's just like so many good little nuggets. And essentially, the common denominator in order to achieve feeling that transmutational, don't even know if that's a word, that transmutation of the dark energy or the loneliness, the sadness, the isolation, the ooh, my ego wants to say the victim mindset. Uh-oh. Hey, if you want to talk, let's talk. If you want to talk about it, let's talk about it. If there's ever anything in these videos that sparks curiosity, interest, an alternative way of perception to you, let's chat. I'm curious. I love one, learning about other people's ideas and perceptions, two, having my mind change, three, collecting more data, and four, just connecting to other humans who enjoy talking about these things. But yeah, one of the ways that I was able to rise above and stand firm in my power over these last couple of years is really checking myself like, Angel, you are not a victim of this life. And I have a long list of reasons as to how I might identify as a victim in this life. But I refuse. I refuse to go down like that. I feel like saying, I'm a bit of an alchemist. There's this victim energy that comes from the cards that I've been dealt. But it's just energy. And it's energy that I get to play with and turn into something great. Yes, X, Y, and Z happened to me, but All through it, I've been protected and provided for and loved. I know what side of the war I'm on. I'm a child of fucking God. So I will not bow down to this victim mentality. Instead, I go inward. I get in alignment. I find my unconditional self-love. And I serve. Just this week was wild. I tend to my community's animals, their houses, their families, their minds, their bodies, their spirits, and together we rise. So, to hit our 3 points that we wanted to, what am I speaking about? I'm speaking about the power that comes when we decide to serve one another. It allows us to get out of ourselves, tend to our community, gain perspective on our stuff, get support on our stuff, help us step into our power of alchemizing our negative stuff. Why does this all matter? Good question. This matters because in a time when the words loneliness epidemic, single parentship, and the amount of people who suffer from suicide, addiction, abuse, the answer is connection. Connection to self and connection to others. And service, among other things, are a fast track way to deep connection. And that's what we would want you to walk away with today. I love you. Thank you.